Netflix most watched series ever, bigger than Stranger Things, anything.
Biggest non-English language show in the world. Squid Game.
Squid Game.
Hottest shows on the planet, and this is the first.
Korean TV show hit in Hollywood. Koreans didn't expect this to happen until this sound spread.
Netflix.
넷플릭스가
One of our biggest TV series ever in Squid Game Season 2.
In December 2023, Netflix released its first ever viewing time report. According to data, Korean content made up 5.9% of all Netflix content. But the real power of Korean show wasn't in quantity, it was in quality. In terms of total watch time, Korean content accounted for 8.2%. And when it comes to the top non-English Netflix shows of all time, number 1 and 2 both belong to Squid Game by a landslide. But now, some are warning that Netflix could be a ticking time bomb for Korean dramas. The signs are already here. The number of Netflix produced Korean drama has been growing by more than 30% every year. But outside of Netflix, the overall production of Korean dramas has been shrinking dramatically. So what does this mean? How has Netflix changed the Korean drama industry? And this isn't just about Korea. This might be a story about the future of global content business. The first scene I remember with Netflix and Korean content was in 2017. Netflix invested $50 million in the future Oscar winners megaphone. It's the biggest production budget in Korean film history. Director Bong became known to the world through Snowpiercer.
Director Bong is a phenomenal director.
All Korean movie fans were waiting for his next film. But the film barely reached 300,000 admissions in theaters. Why? Big theater chains refused to screen it. Netflix wanted to release the movie in the theater and on streaming at the same time. But multiplexes weren't having it.
최소한 3주 정도 홀드백을 원하고 있으니까요. 극장 입장에서는 그런 주장하는 것은 당연하다고 생각합니다. 룰이나 규칙이 오기 전에 영화가 먼저 도착한 것 같습니다.
It looks like a young challenger taken down by the industry giants. But Netflix knew exactly what it was doing. Back then, only 70,000 Koreans subscribed to Netflix. After the movie, the number doubled in just 2 weeks. The snowball had started rolling. Then in 2019, Netflix dropped its first original K-drama. They brought in Kim Eun-hee, one of Korea's top writers. They spent a record-breaking $15 million on production. For global viewers, a historical Korean zombie thriller was something they had never seen before. But here's the thing, even Koreans had never seen a Korean zombie drama. It's too violent for broadcasting. When Kingdom took off, Netflix Korean subscriber count jumped to 2 million. Then came Squid Game. Boom! Netflix Korean hit 4.4 million subscribers. With big investment and massive hits, Netflix was now unstoppable in Korea. By 2024, Netflix Korea has over 11 million subscribers. 1 in 5 Koreans has an account. Its market share? 35%. That's even higher than Netflix's share in the US. Korean streaming platforms can't keep up. They don't have Netflix's budget or content volume. Now, they are trying to merge. One last attempt to survive. But this is nothing new. Companies seek to maximize their profits by increasing their market shares and outcompeting their competitors. Google came to Korea and crushed the local search engine. Facebook wiped out Korean social media. Netflix is different though. It doesn't just sell the content to Koreans, it buys from them. It buys broadcasting rights from Korean studio. It pays Korean actors, writers, directors, and producers. And it's not just any buyer. It's the most powerful one with deepest pocket. That changes everything. Netflix needs certain things to run its business. Streaming rights and the work of writers, directors, actors. In economics, we call this factor of production. To put the problem of this video in a sophisticated way, it is that Netflix holds the monopoly on the Korean drama production factor market. But let's break it down in a simpler way. In the United States, Netflix is not the dominant buyer in the TV production factor market. It holds about 20% of the market, and it has strong competitors like Amazon Prime Video. Hollywood is also filled with legacy studios that can fund their own projects. Then in 2019, Disney launched Disney Plus, and Netflix found itself in trouble. 2 years later, HBO Max entered the game. This company pulled their content from Netflix and put it on their own platforms. For Netflix, its old supplier has suddenly become its biggest competitors. To stay competitive, Netflix needed more original content. That meant it had to buy more production resources and more streaming rights, studio, writers, directors, actors, editors. But then, in 2023, American writers and actors went on strike. The biggest issue was residual payment from streaming service. Writers and actors have got paid bonus every time their work was rerun on TV. But streaming services don't have reruns. Writers and actors only got paid once.
We're asking for a living wage.
The unions wanted streaming platforms to rebuild viewership numbers and provide performance-based bonus. After a 5-month strike, Netflix and other platforms gave in. Now production costs were even higher. So let's say you're the CEO of Netflix. What do? Your old factory just launched its own brand. Building a new factory isn't easy. It's more expensive than before.
If you truly want to be an amazing tech company, why don't you lead the way and help solve it?
But there's a simpler option. Move production overseas. Find a place with fewer competitors and lower cost instead of a new factory. Then make a product, sell the final product worldwide, just like manufacturing companies do. Of course, a TV show isn't the same as Nike sneaker. There's a language barrier.
또는 상속의 선순위나 동순위에 있는 자를 살해하거나 살해하려는 자는
To break this, Netflix built a never-before-seen dubbing and subtitle system.
Si tu refais une erreur, la carte sera bloquée.
And once that problem was solved, Korea became the perfect location for Netflix's new TV factory. First, Asia was Netflix's top priority for global expansion. United States and Europe were too competitive. Latin America and Africa still had growth potential. In other words, they weren't big market yet. Asia was wealthy enough and still a blue ocean, a place where Netflix could make money with minimal investment. Second, Korea was the best gateway to the Asian market. Since the early 2000s, K-drama had already won over fans in Japan, China, and Southeast Asia. If you want to know the full history of K-drama, check out my last video. 4 months before Hollywood strike, Netflix announced $2.5 billion investment in Korean content over the next 4 years. That's twice what Netflix has spent on Korea over the previous 8 years combined.
This also helps them avoid the writer's strike, doesn't it?
Yes, 100% now.
The Korean government welcomed it with open arms. They say Netflix investment would create 68,000 new jobs. With global fundings, production become more flexible. Scripts that have been buried because of budget or censorship finally saw the light of day, like Squid Game. Directors had more creative freedoms without worrying about product placement. Actors got paid what they deserve, and post-production studios had more work than ever before. It seems like everyone in Korea's drama industry was about to win. But this was real-life Squid Game. Only winner took everything. Since Netflix came to Korea, drama production costs have shot up like crazy. Before Netflix started investing, the most expensive K-drama ever made was this one from 2016. The production cost per episode was $560,000. Then Netflix stepped in. Its first Korean drama, Original Kingdom, cost $1.5 million per episode. By 2021, Squid Game hit $2.1 million per episode. And in 2024, Squid Game Season 2 spent more than $7 million per episode. It's not just about the blockbuster shows. Since Netflix entered the market, the average cost of making a K-drama has at least quadrupled. Back in 2015, a typical drama cost $150,000 per episode. Now, even non-Netflix shows cost well over $750,000 per episode. How did cost jump this much? Netflix poured money into the Korean market to snatch up top producers, directors, writers, and actors. Their paychecks skyrocketed. If a drama costs $750 per episode, one lead actor can now take home $200,000 per episode. For Netflix, that's still cheap compared to Hollywood. But Korean TV station and streaming platforms struggled. They couldn't match Netflix's budget. Since they had limited money, they had no choice but to cut back on the number of dramas they made. Netflix has been increasing its drama production by 30% every year. Meanwhile, Korean TV networks are making fewer drama every year. They started focusing on big-name projects that had a higher chance of success. That drove top writers and actors' salaries even higher, which pushed production costs up again. A vicious cycle. And it widened the gap in the industry. Unknown writers and actors had fewer chances to break in. Small studios struggled to survive. In 2012, big production companies with over 7.5 million in revenue made up 50% of Korea's drama market. By 2022, they controlled over 80%. The share of giant studio was just 12.5%. Even with this rising cost, Netflix still sees Korea as an efficient factory. Take Squid Game. Netflix fully funded the show, investing $21 million. The production company got only 10% of that. Netflix kept all the right. How much did Squid Game generate? More than 40 times its production cost, and all the profit went straight to Netflix. Director Hwang Dong-hyuk said he lost 9 teeth from stress while making the show.
You were so stressed that you didn't want to do a second series. Why did you change your mind?
money. 지금 시스템에서 시즌 1만 해서는 사실은 이렇게 빅 석세스를 거두었음에도 불구하고 경제적으로 이제 가져갈 수 있는 것이 사실은 없기 때문에.
That would never happen in Hollywood. But in Korea, it was business as usual. Why? Because Korean TV networks always work this way. They involved most of production budget and took all the profit. Netflix just copied that system. If you are paying attention, you might be thinking, wait, didn't Netflix just replace Korean TV network as greedy middlemen? It's a fair question, but there's one big difference. Korean TV networks had to reinvest their profit into the local industry, whether they like it or not. But how about Netflix? If a cheaper market pops up, Netflix can pack up and leave. And that's already happening. Netflix's next big bet is Japan. From the start, Netflix invested in Korean dramas and Japanese anime as part of its Asia strategy. While K-drama budget shot through the roof, Japan stayed 3 times lower. Netflix is already testing the waters. In October 2025, a new Netflix drama will launch. It's produced by a Korean studio, starring Korean actors, but everything else is Japanese. It looks like K-drama, but costs as little as Japanese show. So what happens when Netflix move on to Japan, Taiwan, or Indonesia? Will Korean drama budgets finally settle down? Will things go back to normal? No. Once an industry breaks, it never goes back to how it was. And this isn't just about Netflix. This happened in the city all over the world. It has a name: gentrification. Netflix isn't just pushing a small, ambitious production company. It's also pushing out Korean value from Korean dramas. Traditional Korean dramas were made for television, targeting a broad audience. The only things that matters are the day and the time slot. Morning dramas were for housewives. Weekday 10 p.m. dramas were for young generation. The theme changed depending on the target audience, but the core stories and emotions were something that every Korean could relate to. Even K-drama that became global hit spread in a specific order. First to Japan, China, and Vietnam, where they shared a similar cultural background. Take this drama from 2002. It was a massive hit in Japan. One of the biggest reasons is the character's personality. Even in conflict, they remained polite, humble, and dignified. Because in Korea, Japan, and East Asia, that's what an ideal person looks like. This drama didn't just stop at Asia. It became hugely popular in Iran too. The story was about the main character who endured hardship with patience and wit, overcoming every challenge to grow stronger. Let's compare that to Squid Game. Squid Game doesn't just depict harsh reality. It portrays humans as even more ruthless and cruel than in a real life. At its core, Squid Game isn't that different from a typical Hollywood survival movie. The setting, the outfit, the cultural elements, those are just wrapping. And this is exactly the kind of show that Netflix loves. Netflix want their customer to sit in front of TV as long as possible. For that, it needs constant new content. But traditional Korean dramas, they only appeal to specific audience, mostly viewers in Korea, Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam. Now, what about a K-style survival drama? Even a Death Game fan in Argentina might find it fresh and exciting.
What the hell?
That's why Netflix prefers genre-driven content over regional content. And thanks to the data you provide, Netflix knows exactly what you like, even your guilty pleasures. And it can use algorithm to recommend exactly the shows you want. Because the way Netflix reaches its audience is completely different from TV, the type of content it prepared are also completely different. K-Death Game, K-Zombies, K-Court Drama, K-Revenge Story. Netflix Korean show follow classic Hollywood genre formula. Because Netflix's entire recommend system is based on Western genre category. The only difference? The production cost is way lower and the wrapping is Korean, so it looks flashy. Traditional Korean dramas were 16 episodes long. The main couple would dance around their feelings for 8 episodes before sharing their first kiss. The kind of slow, heart-floating romance would be disappearing. Netflix want viewers glued to their screen, binge-watching on Friday night with bloodshot eyes. To make that happen, Korean dramas are becoming more visually intense, faster-paced, and more provocative.
Have you watched it?
No, I can't watch it. I can't. It's too much for me.
They are no longer a medium to share Korean culture with the world. They are product designed to fit Netflix's global algorithm. And we are already seeing the result. Did you know Money Heist was remade in Korea? As a fan of Spanish original, I was excited. But after watching just a few episodes, I turned it off.
교수라고 불러.
Honestly, I could help but ask, did we really need this? Netflix probably thought, if we mix up popular IP with the global popularity of K-drama, we'll guarantee the hit. Another example is Survive. The title screams that I'm Korean movie, but the movie is just a poor imitation of Fast and Furious and Babe Driver. Car chases aren't common in Korean film because budgets and road restriction make them incredibly hard to pull off. Unless a car chase is truly necessary for the story, Korean directors usually find another way to build tension. This is what a Korean car chases look like. Instead of flash crashes, it uses realistic traffic and stoplight to raise the tension dramatically. No over-the-top explosion, no Hollywood-style spectacle, and I'm scared we are losing this unique, brilliant moment. This shift isn't just affecting Korean dramas, it is shaping Korean society, and not for the better. Korea has always had a strong collectivist culture, and for decades, dramas were a major force that connected society. It wasn't unusual for a single drama to capture over 50% of the nation's viewership. But now, even Korea's biggest hit dramas are out of reach for some Koreans. Parents and schools are struggling to stop kids from watching Squid Game. Yet, on national TV, news anchors proudly celebrate the global success of Korean content. Kids are secretly watching violent scenes from Squid Game through YouTube Shorts and TikTok. They see it without filters and even recreate the violence at school. And it's not just kids. For many older Koreans, Netflix itself feels unfamiliar and difficult to use. The role of dramas in bringing society together is fading. And soon, this will not just be Korea's problem. Right now, Korea is Netflix's factory for premium content. But when production costs skyrocket and there's nothing left to squeeze, Netflix will move on. It will take the formula it perfected in Korea and apply it to another country with cheaper labor and production costs. And while that happens, Netflix will continue tracking every post, every click, every recommendation you follow. When it finally has enough data, When its algorithm is flawless, what will the future of entertainment look like? And more importantly, can the cultural heritage of the world survive in this system? I really thank you for watching this long video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave comment or subscribe or likes. It really helps for me. And see you next video.